I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, July the 29th, brought to you in part by Harvest Bank. John Rich and his team of Ag Bank officers, they know what it takes to run a cattle operation. They've been around it all their lives. I met several of them here just a few weeks ago, and I mean, they're just like any of the guys you'd meet at the sale barn. They think about what's going on in the cattle business all the time. They know when you need money. They know what kind of money it costs. They're up to date on the markets. They're looking for cattle customers in Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And they won't leave you hanging if you're protecting yourself and you have margin calls. You hear stories about guys, oh, I got a big margin call and I'm out of money, bank won't loan me any money to make the margin call. They won't leave you hanging on the margin calls, guys. Of course, all loans are subject to credit approval. For more information, go to harvest.com/agriculture. Also, Beaver County Stockyards in Beaver, Oklahoma, 3,500 for this week. They just keep having big sales all the time. They've got a nice offering there. They're going to have 800 to 900 calves. Most of them weighing 400 to 600 pounds. Conk tells me only about 25% of them are going to be weaned on Tuesday. They do have 180 fancy calves in one deal. They will be selling those together. They got 600 to 700 yearling heifers to sell. And then most of those will be a lot of them weighing in the 7s. And you could turn those back out or put them on feed, whatever you want to do, but have probably 5 straight loads of yearling heifers weighing in the 7s, so kind of two-way cattle on them. They do have a consignment 56 head of red 900-pound replacement heifers. They'll be fancy. If you're looking for red replacement heifers, guys, you'll have a chance to buy a good load of them in Beaver County Stockyards on Tuesday. Then they're going to have a bunch of yearling steers, 17 to 1,800 head of yearling steers, most of them weighing 800 to 1,000 pounds. But they will have included in that 700 head of 10-weight steers coming off just 3 deals. And they'll be selling mostly in loads. Be lots of opportunities to buy lots of loads of feeder steers, and the quality will be very, very good. They've got kind of a unique offering in the cow run. They got about 500 cows. They get a lot of cows at Beaver County Stockyards too. They sell after the feeders. They're going to have one consignment there. It's a dispersal. A fellow lived over there towards Perryton and passed away, and they are going to be bringing 64 head of cows coming in. They're pretty well split half and two. There's about 32 head of pairs, and all these cows are going to be 3 and 4 year olds. There's about half of them going to be pairs, and the other half are going to be P1 kind of feeding cows. So you know, if you guys want to get in on those, they got a lot of value to them, and they tell me that the quality is very, very good. But most of the rest of the cows just be older, running age and weigh up cows and bulls and things like that. But if you're interested in that, get on to DVAuction.com. I'm going to be going over on Tuesday. I'm going to go over and they're starting to build on to their new edition. I want to see how that's going. I want to see some of these cattle selling. Might get up and help sell for a little while. But it's just a good time to go to Beaver County Stockyards and check in on them on Tuesday. Another day, another record. This thing is starting to get a little bit easier to predict here of late. You just say it's going to be a bunch higher every day, and it is. The board's higher a bunch. Your fat cattle market wound up for last week at another new record high. We posted new record highs on several different weight classes of feeders on Monday, even though Monday wasn't really a big auction day. Of course, Oklahoma City and Joplin had pretty good runs, but very few others, and a lot of the ones that are on every other week or on a abbreviated schedule were off on Monday, so not a whole bunch. And if you remember, I was saying here a month or two ago that it was going to be really hard to keep the index levels up when we got into these slim runs, but they just keep doing it. I mean, anywhere you've got some cattle, and they don't even have to be loads. In fact, sometimes the part load's selling higher. I mean, they just crank on them. And man, they're just keeping this index levels extremely high. Of course, your spot feeder cattle contract is out in front of that, leading it on, so we don't see that very often. So it's just wild out here, guys. We had that bullish cattle on feed report on Friday. It was fully realized. First on the board, and then immediately after on your cash feeders in the auctions. And I'm going to ask you guys one time again here. You see what these price levels are on feeder cattle and calves. What would they be if we didn't have cattle auctions? What do you think? What would a 500-pound steer bring if we didn't have auctions? $2 a pound? They may be $5 a pound now. You know, they just, you never hear of the all-time record highs being posted on direct trade cattle in the country. No, it's always the auctions that are out ahead of them, establishing those new record prices. You know, you've got to have competitive bidding. And tell you what, if you get on Facebook and you keep up and you see our NationalBeefWire quotes on there, and we keep talking about all the records that are being broken. That is Clara. Clara is our IP technology there that we have given access to all this real-time market data that we have here at DVAuction and Cattle Market Central. And Clara goes through there and checks and pulls and compares all those top prices there and shows when the new records are broken. It's kind of interesting to keep up with it, but it's just amazing what that AI technology is. But you know, the big corporates and establishment beef that is really kind of loving up to this beef on dairy that is coming down the line. You know, they're not wild on beef on dairy because they think the cattle are better because they're half dairy or anything like that. They like it because they're going to eliminate competition. That's the reason they go to bed at night, the reason they wake up in the morning, try to figure out how to eliminate competition that causes these big prices that they don't want to pay. And so, you know, we've seen them really loving up to this beef on dairy. Has something to do with what's going on with the methane, you know, talking about it and the money that went to American Angus Association and everything. But you get the contract on those dairy calves and you give them the straws of semen out of these high-powered Angus bulls, and then whenever those calves drop, you've got them. You don't have to, you're not going to run them on grass. You don't have to go to a sale barn and find them. You don't have to assemble them. You don't have to buy them again as yearlings. They've got them. And that's what they want to do, is have that vertical integration going all the way up, guys. And because, you know, as much as your small producers and your cow-calf people love the auction markets and the prices they're getting, those outfits hate them. And, you know, it makes them feel like they can't even compete when they're having to give these big prices. Well, you know, if it's getting hot in the kitchen, maybe you have to do something different. But these auction markets, they are a wonderful way to find price discovery and for market transparency. I mean, anybody can go in and sit down and write the prices down. And of course, I give them all to you every morning, so you don't have to do that. But it's just, it's a little bit scary the way that they don't like any competition in this industry, when we know that we've got to have it if we're going to have a future for this industry. But talk about Donald Trump. He is making trade deals all over, made a big one with the EU. We'll see if we can get the European Union to start taking some beef from us now. They seem so paranoid about if it's had a implant or not, but we've got cattle that don't have implants. We can find them some cattle, whatever they want. But tell you what, it's getting exciting, everything that's going on with Trump, and I hope all you doubters are starting to see the light that Trump is he's a savior for this country, and he's going to prop us back up after we were falling down so far down before. But let's talk about your board for Monday to start the week. August live cattle futures were up $1.40 at $227.87. That's only $12 or $13 under your cash market last week. October was up $162 at $224.77. Your back month's up 87 to up 187. August feeder cattle up $215 on Monday at $333.52. September was up $235 at $334.55. Back months were even higher than that. Went from $235 higher to as much as $397 higher, and that's over a year into the future. The last traded month on the board for feeder cattle was up to nearly $4. So they're liking what's going on. December new crop corn was down again, down 5 3/4 cents a bushel at $4.13 1/4. Your spot corn contract, which there's no trade in, actually went under $4 on Monday. November new crop beans down 9.5 cents a bushel at $10.11 1/2, and your hard red winter wheat for September down 1/4 at $5.26 1/4 cents a bushel. Talk about your fed cattle market. Your weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade on a direct basis, negotiated out of your 5-area feeding region, totaled 51,800, which is pretty good when you figure I come out on Friday with the report plumb up through Wednesday, and there was less than 4,000, I think, and they ended up for the week 51,800. The bulk of it was actually late Wednesday, or late Friday, excuse me. I had quite a bit of trade on Friday afternoon, but late Friday even more, because they come across with a little bit more money. But that 51,800 compared to 49,400 the previous week and 61,100 the same week a year ago. Live sales of fat steers and heifers range from 226 to 245, with a new record high weighted average price of $239.38, and that was up $1.60 compared to last week's weighted average, or the previous week's weighted average. Dress sales range from $375 to $384. Weighted average on dress steers $379.50. That was up 15 cents from the previous week's weighted average. As a whole, your Southern Plains market was steady to $2 higher, from $230 to $232. The $232 came late Friday and was more prominent than anything else earlier. Northern Plains were unevenly steady to $5 higher. Live prices from $238 to $245, and the dress market mostly steady at $380. Nationwide, they sold 62,900 head last week compared to 60,400 the prior week, and 73,200 the same week a year ago. Of that 62,900, about 18,100, or 29% of them, were for the 2 to 4 week delivery on those. The negotiated grid sales were pretty light compared to usual. Only 29,800 head of negotiated grid sales. Forward contracts were 24,100 head, and formula sales, sweetheart deals, 222,700 head. Of the 4 out of 5 feeding regions that we get information from, Iowa sold 23,650 negotiated last week. Nebraska sold 15,800. Kansas sold 7,800, negotiated last week. In Texas, only 4,600. Box beef cutout values on Monday were higher, not a lot higher, but was pointing in the right direction. Choice cuts up 105 at 367.73. Selects up 198 at 346.85. Your slaughter to start the week out on a pretty decent note after last week having only 549,000 for the entire week, and that was the lightest non-holiday weekly slaughter that we've seen in 10 years. But started out pretty good on Monday this week at 108,000. That's 3,000 more than last week, 6,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. They are working to protect your livelihood right there in Carthage, Missouri, guys. Get a hold of them for any of your ag business insurance needs. Talk about your real-time index at the conclusion of all your Monday sales, but including them at 331.61. That was up 166 from the end of last week. Indeed, your CME cash feeder cattle index gained quite a bit of ground over the weekend and come out at 329.93, but it's always a day and a half behind. Talk about your big sales on Monday. Of course, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma National Stockyards had a light run of 3,000 head. Feeder steers and steer calves in Oklahoma City sold $8 to $13 higher, with spots as much as $20 higher. Feeder heifers and heifer calves sold $10 to $20 higher, so pretty similar. Really good sale there on a light run. Joplin Regional Stockyards had a light run for them, just 4,700 head. That'd be huge for most anybody else, but steers and heifers in Joplin selling steady to $8 higher, with those lightweights under 500 pounds $20 to $30 higher. People just want to get their hands on them. They want ownership of them. Joplin was your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard Cattle Handling Equipment's stick-out sale of the day. And you look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central, and you see I left the changes on there from last week, and they are all sharply higher on the weighted averages. My goodness there. How about 231 head of 4-weight steer calves, average 457 at 442.46 on the weighted average. 369 head of the 5-weight steers, average 547 at 399.76. There were 324 head of the 6-weight steers, average 638 pounds at 375.66. 450 head of 7-weight steers, average 752 at 342.79. There were 695 head of the 8-weight steers in Joplin. They averaged 859 at 324.40, and 340 head of the 9-weight steers had an average weight of 937, a weighted average price of 314.81. Heifers sold well also. 286 head of the 4-weight heifers averaged 464 at 408.56. 395 head of the 5-weight heifers averaged 542 at 363.21. There were 568 head of 6-weight heifers. They averaged 646 at 342.12. 468 head of 7-weights averaged 762 at 329.23. And 217 head of 8-weight feeder heifers in Joplin Regional Stockyards at Carthage, Missouri had a weighted average weight of 851 and a weighted average price of 308.09. I know that was long, but it's a well-tested market, guys, there at JRS. Look at some individual quotes I thought were pretty impressive there. Bluegrass Stockyards in Lexington, Kentucky sells 75 steers, weighed 665 at 394. Way out east, guys. How about Overbrook Livestock Commission in Overbrook, Kansas there? They sell 61 head of mixed steers, weighed 903 pounds at 322 on Monday. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Monday and your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day. Come out of Tina Livestock in northwest Missouri there. Heard from Dwayne Penny that they were professionally purchased as calves, but these were yearlings the guy had turned out this summer. 137 head of 835 pound steers bring 347.85. Wow. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.